Hi everybody, welcoming you once again in the channel of Learn with Amina, and today I have brought again an episode for IELTS learners and those who wants to appear for IELTS. Today my topic would be speaking test. So I'll be sharing with you 10 different tips as an expert for you to improve yourself. So as you're going to appear for IELTS, I hope that means that you are going to take a language test and you should have so many things all around you. So, first of all, let me tell you what is speaking test of IELTS. Basically, you might be nervous about speaking because many of people do so. But these 10 tips are going to be helpful for you for English IELTS speaking. And you will be having plenty of practice, you will be having a lot of effort to score what you need. So for both IELTS and paper of IELTS, on computer or maybe sometimes face-to-face speaking test is made up of 3 parts. So what are those 3 parts? Part 1. In part 1, you'll have 4 to 5 minutes conversation with an IELTS examiner about yourself. So generally, topics may include what kind of work do you do? About your family, about your home life, where do you reside, etc., and about your personal interest. What do you like to do and what you not like to do? Let's talk about part 2. In part 2 of speaking test, you'll be given a card with the topic and you will be given 1 minute to take notes of that with a given pencil and a paper. Just to prepare your response, you will then have to speak for 2 minutes. Let's talk about part 3. In part 3, you have common conversation with the IELTS examiner around the topic given in part 2. Whatever part 2 is having is connected to part 3. So discussing it in more detail, part 3 should be approximately 4 to 5 minutes to complete. So in IELTS speaking, you are going to have these 3 part of tests. Now I'm going to tell you which kind of tips you are going to opt for speaking IELTS test. Number 1, don't memorize your answers. So, don't memorize answers. Tip number 2, don't use big and unfamiliar words. The common words should be used instead, those with whom people are also familiar with. So you may want to impress the examiner with big and complex words sometimes in your speaking, but listen to be safe. Avoid using words that you are not familiar with so that you do not get confused and don't make mistakes. So use a wide range of vocabulary that you know what is relevant to the topic. Tip number 3. You should use a range of grammatical structures. When I can give you an example, in IELTS examiners assess your speaking skill, they will mark you against some things in their own assessment criteria. So there are 4 things they are grammatically going to assess you in. Number 1, fluency and coherence, then lexical resource, then critical range and accuracy, and the last word would be pronunciation. So you will be acknowledged and tested upon these grammatical structures. Tip number 4, you should not worry about your accent. Doesn't matter if you speak American or British accent. So with face-to-face speaking test, IELTS examiner will understand a wide range of accents, so will be able to understand what you have to say, unlike all like a machine. So don't be a machine or a robot, just say it in your own accent. Next up, tip number 5. Pause to think. There is no harm in thinking and taking time what you want to say. So we all do it like to process questions. You can use phrases sometimes to give you think during the speaking test. Now, what kind of phrases you can use? You can say, that's an interesting question. I have never thought about that, but. You can also say, let me see. That's a good point. That's a difficult question, but I'll try to answer it. Well, some people say that is the case. However, I think, lastly, in this tip number 5, you can add up the sentence. Let me think about for a minute. Tip number 6. Now speak confidently and avoid using fillers. You should avoid using fillers to make your speech more productive so that you are considered to be a good speaker. Speak confidently and avoid using fillers. You generally use fillers when you don't know what to say and you have nothing in mind to say. So you can't be appropriate language speaker if you are using a lot of fillers. Now, what kind of fillers you should avoid? Just like, you know, well, yeah. Now move to tip number 7. Extend your answers. Try to answer the examiner questions in full. Do not leave the thing in hand halfway. And try to prompt you with the question. Examiner usually does this. So when you answer in a short way, the examiner will not be saying you to talk in detail. So if the examiner says why, they are prompting you basically to give you a reason to extend more fully to your answer. Tip number 8. Smiling helps pronunciation. So whenever you are smiling, it will help you calm your nerves and you will be able to help your pronunciation speaking. Make sure that you clearly, openly and widely open your mouth and properly speak up clearly. Whenever you smile, our mouth is bigger, so tone of voice is even more friendly. Now use clear education and enunciation and tone that will be a very peaceful and necessary thing for examiner to be judged. Tip number 9. Don't speak in a monotone. Now what is a monotone? Monotone means different variations. Sometimes when we speak, we just produce a flat sound. So don't be monotonous. Use little variation. Where you have to be loud, use intonation patterns. Be loud, be slow and expressive. So don't speak in a monotone. Vary the stress and intonation emphasis and use your hand to gesture the help of rhyme and conversation. The last tip of the day that I'm going to tell you about is practice common Ielts topics. I'll be telling you some of the topics in the end. But before that, I'm going to tell you what do we use practice common topics in. In IELTS speaking part 2, IELTS speaking test requires basically what you speak on a given topic for 2 minutes. Practice common IELTS with your friends, family, colleagues, and to improve your learned vocabulary and each topic around you. So what are the common topics you should practice for IELTS speaking test? Number 1. You should prepare yourself for tourism and travel. Number 2, you should talk about education. Number 3, you should go for transportation. Then you should talk about environment. You may also talk about family life. You should also talk about sports and recreation in life and the leisure time. You can also talk about crime and punishment, the internet and its surfing these days. And lastly, you can also say advertising the retail. So all these tips I hope would be very much fruitful for you, and in this way from this video you'll be learning a lot for IELTS speaking test if you want to get higher bands and score. So these were all from a very expert tips. Oh, of course it was from me. This is Learn with Amna, and I'll be watching you, inshallah. I'll be catching you back in my next video related to another module of IELTS. Till then, take very good care of yourself. Keep subscribing, sharing my channel. This is Learn with Amna.